what I've done is I've uploaded a bunch of PowerPoint presentations that I've used in class. I have a couple of pages here of files. And you can pretty much, explain everything, you can hit New Project and you can import your file from Dropbox, which is really great. I'm all about Dropbox too. If you have a computer, an iPad, an iPhone, you can instantaneously access your files from whatever device you're on, and that's really great. So you can immediately just import a PowerPoint presentation from Dropbox. I want to say that when I first downloaded Explain Everything, it didn't do PowerPoints. You know, I was really disappointed that you could upload photographs. So I emailed the developer and said, hey, what up? We need to do PowerPoints. And within 3 days, the guy had changed the software so that it could now upload PowerPoints. And we were in conversation with each other for about a week and said, well, you know, it's not aligning right. Then he fixed that. And so it was it's great. This web company is like based in Poland or something. So I don't even know them well. He had some graduate student at MIT that was working with him who was really interested that I wanted to be able to do this, and again, within just a few days, he made it do what I wanted it to do, which is really cool. So that's kind of a lesson to say, if you get an app that does most of what you want it to do, email a developer. These guys are all about wanting to change the app and make it work for you. So you can upload PowerPoints, and so the idea isn't just to use the iPad to play your PowerPoints as if you had a laptop and it's lighter to carry around, although that is an advantage. The idea for me is that you could, I'm just going to open one of these here. You can actually do stuff with your slides that makes them come alive a little bit more. So one of the things that I think is pretty neat is that sometimes you show something like this, and the text is a little hard to read from the back of the room, and there's a lot going on all at one time. So you can instantaneously, just by pinching, you can resize it and say, okay, you guys, I want you to just think about how atoms are related to molecules, and we're not going to worry about the rest of this figure right now. Okay, and then you can definitely write over. You get some drawing options here. I usually use the thinner pen, especially because my handwriting's not that great. You can set the pen tip to be a little bit darker, and then there's cool colors like purple and stuff, and so we might use green here. And so you can circle things, you can point stuff out, you can talk about cells or whatever it is that you want to, and you have to remember to sort of take the writing part off before, if you want to resize your figure and say, let's go to this part. So once you've talked about all of these different levels of biological organization, you can then downsize the figure, put it over to the side, and say, all right, let's review what some of these terms mean. So you might want to, whoops, if I spell something wrong, you can go to the eraser. You might want to just, rewrite a term and, talk to your class about what's going on, and so that's pretty neat. And then if you go to the next slide, and one of the things is that things come out really big, which can be nice, but again, you might want to resize it so that you can write stuff, you can point stuff out, you can, whatever it is that you're saying or doing. So what's really nice is it records everything that you do. All right, so if you have a whole PowerPoint and you've written a number of different things in different colors and have said, all right, let's talk about the mitochondria, because we are going to be, focusing on metabolism and what are the different metabolic processes that take place at the level of the mitochondria, or whatever you're talking about. These notes will be saved here, and then you can upload it to Blackboard. So you can upload your PowerPoint, you can save it in a new version, and now you have your PowerPoint with all your scribbling over it. So it works like a smartboard. So this app for like $3.99 does what a smartboard does, which I think is pretty cool. There's a few other things on here that you can do. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention. So if you go to a new slide and then you go back, one of the things that you can't do now is I can't erase this now. But what I can do is I can resize it because things come out big, and then I can write some new stuff. Now I can fit some new things in there, so you can see how you can get a lot of different things going on. It makes it a little bit more dynamic than just kind of yakking at your PowerPoint. And you can make it, you definitely can use it to make your class more interactive by, you can put up A, B, and C. I mean, it's like a chalkboard or a whiteboard. You can do those sort of similar things and say, okay, how many people think that the ecosystem is the highest level biological organization, and then you can draw on here and talk about that. So there's also a, if you don't want to write, you can just use the pointer. Okay. And there are ways that you can insert a blank slide and say, okay, now we've looked at this picture, so let's just take a little bit of time to talk about maybe how evolution's working in two different populations, and we have a population of organisms that we're going to call A, and some that are B, and then after a few levels of selection, these guys are all wiped out, and so obviously you get the idea. And the thing is, it's really easy to learn. Like, it's so easy to do that you don't have to practice it. You don't have to choreograph your lecture. It really just takes a few minutes to figure out how to do. What else was I going to show here? There's so the other piece of this is that you can, if you look down on the bottom here, you can record your voice over everything as well. Okay, so you can just hit the, if I just hit this red button, and it records per slide. So I can, you can either do this at home if you want to make an online lecture and just talk at your iPad, write on it, resize, write something else, do whatever you want, and yak all the time about whatever it is, and then go to the next slide, and then when you upload the whole presentation, or the whole explain everything presentation as I call it, it's pretty seamless. It will stitch together the voice from the different slides, but you do have to be careful not to talk while you're changing the slide if you want that word to show up. So it can be a little blippy. So I've done it where I'm still talking. So if you just hit the record button here, it's recording me now, and you can see the time is ticking off. And you have a lot of time because I can't remember what the maximum, I think you can talk for at least like a half hour per slide. So that's way longer than you would actually need, right? Because you have, a lot of slides here. You can pause it and stop. One of the drawbacks is that you can go back and re-record over something, but then if somebody's listening to it linearly, since the voice recording is for each slide, it's going to be disruptive. So if I say, okay, let's talk about animal cells for a while, and then I say, okay, let's compare that to plant cells, and how are they different, and they have cell walls, and then I say, oh, and by the way, remember that animal cells, so if I, the voice, it's not gonna seamlessly put that together. So that's a problem. If you're using a screencast, you can go back and forth and talk, but you can't do all this other stuff like write and keep your notes there. So I think it has advantages over using screencasts. So let's see, what else was I going to say? So yeah, I think you have a slide sorter, so you can go to different places, pick up where you were the last time. It's nice to be able to write over photographs, which is something that you can't do too easily in other kinds of applications. Again, resizing. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to say. So because you can't really erase, now that we made this slide before, I can't easily erase it, but I can delete pieces of it. So if I do that, it starts to wiggle, I can hit the X, and well, it's supposed to delete. There's probably something I'm doing wrong here. Like maybe if I hit the screen a couple times, it's recording it in a few pieces, but usually you don't really need to do that. And you can always just create, again, a new blank slide at any point that you want to and draw what you want it to do. You can upload images from your photo roll, from your camera, from Dropbox, from Evernote. And then when you're done, you can save your file. You can save it under new names every time you do it. If so you can go back to your original. If you really screw it up, you can just go back to Dropbox and re-download your unadulterated PowerPoint. And then you can also, if we go home here, I'm just going to hit no on the save there. You can export whatever project you want. So if I want to, back here, if I wanted to just export this one, you can send your movie right directly to YouTube. So again, you don't have to do a lot of steps in between like you do with other kinds of programs. You can send it to Dropbox. You can send it right, just import it right up to YouTube. So that's if you have a voice recorded, they call it a movie. You can put it all together as a PDF and export it that way. So it's really easy for importing and exporting and for annotating. So I was going to show you a different app. Does anybody have any questions about this one?
Sorry, because I walked in late, I apologize, but it's called Explain Everything?
It's called Explain Everything,
okay.
Yeah.
I was just hoping I was...
It looks like this on the...
I was hoping I was reading the title bar right.
So. Yeah, it's called Explain Everything.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only an iPad. I've looked to see if they had another,
other
PC
tablets that might support it, like
or
something.
Or regular computer.
Okay. Yeah,
but they don't.
It's
just an iPad.
Yeah.
Do you know if it reads natively Keynote? Because it sounds like it reads PowerPoint, or is it just PDF?
Well, it's downloading your PowerPoint slides into a slide into an Explain Everything. So you can go to Dropbox and open something, and that's the way that I usually do it. Is instead of importing it from there, it's easier for me to organize my files from Dropbox.
Mm-hmm.
So if I
and so what format are you using in Dropbox? Is it PowerPoint directly? No. Looks like PowerPoint.
So this one's open in Dropbox, so this is a preview, right? So it's not in any of those applications at this point.
Right.
And then when when you hit this button up here, you can open it in either Keynote or some of your other applications.
Right.
So if I open it into Explain Everything, it downloads into Explain Everything, and then I can save it under a different name there. Does that make sense? So, but the PowerPoint was created on my computer.
Right. There's a PowerPoint format and there's a Keynote format, and they're not identical.
Keynote is Apple's.
So Keynote is
Apple's.
Right.
No, I have Keynote on
so
here.
So does this open Keynote presentations as well?
Oh, I see. If you were to create
create a Keynote.
That's a good question. I think that you.
I can go find it.
I think.
It does. Okay, thank you.
It looks like.
Well, if it's like the PC, you can always do export your whole presentation as a JPEG and then import it.
Yeah.
Just
I've always done it right from PowerPoint instead of.
Another 10.
I haven't used Keynote to create things that much. I usually use it for uploads.
Yeah, it's I like it a lot better for creating presentations.
For creating them.
Yeah.
Than PowerPoint itself. Okay. So, any other questions about that? I have some of my voice practice slides uploaded to YouTube if anybody wants to look at that. And I was just going to talk about Show Me. If you don't want to use PowerPoint, you can use this other app that's just called Show Me. It's really simple. So if really what you want to do is to just write and talk and have different colors that you have right on your side here. You only get one pen width option, but you can write whatever you want. You can import a photo, or you can just take a photo. And I was mentioning this earlier. You can actually just use your iPad to, snap a photo of the audience, or or if you're out in the field and you're a biologist, you're gonna take some pictures of whatever organism you're interested in, and then you can. Here we go, hit done. So now, now we can say, oh, there's but anyway, it's a way that you can do things with photographs. You can't resize in here like you can with Explain Everything. So, but if you want something simple, and it does voice record. So there's the record button as well, and you can see that it's kind of ticking away. So Show Me is another option if you're not interested in a lot of the flexibility or the download of the slides that you can do and Explain Everything. Other questions, comments, or thoughts? The other thing I mentioned, since some people came in late, is that there is a Sketch app where you can go right to either the web or you can take a screenshot, and the whole idea is to be able to annotate with a pen. Things that you can capture from the web, you can take a screenshot or whatever. These are, just some little practices here where you download whatever image, anything from the web, anything and you can write over it, and then you can, share it. You can email it to yourself. You can tweet it pretty instantly. You can upload some of this stuff. The Explain Everything has a seamless Facebook, Twitter interface if you're interested in doing that as well. So that's about it. Any
As a practical matter,
yeah?
You're connected by cable
Right
to the
now?
projector.
Yes.
And does that constrain? Do you feel like that's constraining?
It's a little constraining, but I usually, like during class, I might write a little bit, and then I'm wandering around, and then you come back to it, and so it's not too bad. But it does keep you a little bit in the vicinity. If you're only talking and writing here and not doing stuff in between, and I do a lot of stuff in between. So then one of the problems is that you can get timed out. And because Keene State requires that password, you can't set it to never time out, so that's a little problematic. I think you can only get a maximum of, 10 minutes or something. So, but it would be cool if there was a wireless way to connect to a projector, which I think maybe in the future there would be, and then you would be holding your iPad here, and walking around the classroom and making an annotation and being able to move a little bit. So that being able to be untethered from the projector is something that has crossed my mind.
Yeah, I think Apple has built in that technology with AirPlay.
Okay.
And it's so now I can play things on my TV from home. Through my receiver from your
iPad.
iPad and my iPhone.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so I think
Can it talk to a data projector?
You can at the moment. But
Yeah.
in the few presentations that I've done like this, I'm a walker like you are.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to have to keep coming back to the
Constriction
the
of the podium. Yeah. It's true. And and again, it's not really all that different from some of the kinds of things that we do now, other than the fact that you can record things and you can save them and you can upload them, and I'll ask students to download or print their PowerPoint slides, and I don't put a lot of text. I use mostly just images and diagrams and photographs. I'm like a no text on the PowerPoint slide kind of person. So that they can download and print or use their textbook if they're textbook images, and then they can take notes right on top of the slides the way I have, or they can print my scribbles later if they want to. So, but being able to do voice recordings is a big advance. So, online lectures can be more flexible than Jing or Screencast.
Kara, do you find your students, are they are they experiencing this in other of their biology or science classes, or is it unusual what you're doing?
Nobody else in my department's using it. Most of them have said that they haven't, seen people using their iPads. I don't know that a whole lot of people are yet. I'm not sure why. It's really pretty easy, And but I keep asking them, because I've been using it this semester even more than last semester, like every class, because I was experimenting with it, and now I'm just using it all the time, and say, well, how are you guys doing with this? And a lot of them like the fact that you can shrink the slide, set it to the side, and then write something. Because right now, what we're stuck with is you have a big screen that comes down over the whiteboard. And so you either have to walk all the way on the other side of the whiteboard and say, okay, well, let me write something over here and remember what we did over here. And then you can't even have enough room, and then the person sitting over there can't even see on this angle, or you have to pull the screen up and down a lot. So it makes it just more, less of a chaotic mess. And they can reference. They can reference what you're talking about because it's always just right there. Trying to find some of these that I've done some scribbles on before. I don't have the greatest handwriting in the world. And so it helps because when you do write on these slides, there's certainly drawbacks. Things come out really large, and then if they're too big, you can say, all right, let's just make that smaller. So that just remember when we were talking about how actually kingdoms don't exist anymore. Biologists don't use that word anymore. It's just an outdated term, and we can talk more about that.
Karen, have you noticed students using iPads at all? Because I haven't.
I have students in my class that take their notes on iPad, and they bring them to lab. My invertebrates O class is very lab intensive, which is why I like to put online lectures so they can hear a lot of material, and then they use all the class time for laboratory work. And so they do a lot of sort of observation and drawing, and so they can take pictures of specimens on their iPad and take notes from the photograph. So a couple of them are doing that, not all of them. Not all of them have an iPad. So being able to write notes on what you're seeing can be important for a visually oriented kind of field like biology is.
This might be a little off topic, but this semester I've noticed more than ever that students are really interested in the whole e-book and downloading their textbooks, and either on their iPhones, which have tiny screens, or their iPads. And I wonder if I just sort of wonder, especially in the sciences with books being so expensive, if that's sort of where we're headed. And then if that's the case, if not only you are annotating, but they're annotating, and it seems like there's a lot of possibility for.
There are. I think there's still, students I think are still a bit resistant to ebooks, but I use CourseSmart and have a lot of my textbooks. I don't know if you guys have it on there. So a lot of these figures from my, say, invertebrates O class, I can download into a PowerPoint, or I could just sort of, show them on here. And you can't really write over CourseSmart. This is a different application, so I can't just take my pen and start drawing on this. But I can resize things and move them around and talk about it that way. So I can instantly access something from the textbook. If somebody brings, I read on page 83, I can go to actually page 83 and put it up on the screen and we can talk about it. So that's pretty nice.
I can say something about that maybe. I use ebooks. It's not the only version I use, but the reason I'm using it is that I picked certain chapters from certain textbooks, and students can buy that condensed version, leaving out, I don't know, maybe 7 chapters actually in 25 chapters, and they feel pretty good about it, and that's why most of my students in one class are using ebook because they're thinking they're getting a really good deal.
They are cheaper. I mean, an average science textbook now is like $120, $150.
Yeah, and I think that's driving it is the cost. But I think we're all trying to figure out how to mix the interfaces. People have paper books and ebooks and
Well,
regardless of what you think about Apple's textbook initiative,
Yeah.
I think that the future is there. The combination of video and
I agree.
making
I think
something
so,
that's
too.
really interactive for our
Absolutely.
students in a different way, and making it possible for faculty members or making it so easy that it's like using Microsoft Word. Well,
Yeah.
maybe that's not so easy, but
Yeah.
that you have these opportunities to even put these materials together, packaged in a way that it is interactive with students.
One of the free samples
Yes,
you
that's
can
exactly- I
download is
just
Life
pulled it
on
up.
Earth, and it's really, if you want to indulge 3 extra minutes, I can demonstrate this. And of course, it's a biology book, so it's cool. And it'll be nice that there'll be more things like this. But you can't probably hear it because he's talking. We would just hook this to a speaker system so students could listen to it as well. But this is what they'd be listening to at home. And so there's just all kinds of amazing, like Mel was just saying, you can integrate the video and the reading of the text and the video. And I mean, this is sort of maybe putting us out of business, because this is what I do in my classroom. I'm like, let me find a video on that, let me find an image, let me talk about it, and let me put these pieces together so that you can understand how mitosis works, right?
Well, Mike Caulfield and I always joke that textbook publishers see faculty as the middleman, and their job is to get rid of the middleman or women. And
Yeah.
but I think it fundamentally changes the nature of what it means to be a professor. It
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
eliminate our utility.
Well, and it gives me like more time. Like if my students have done all this, and if they're reading this at home, and then if they come into the class, we could actually do some experiments. Like, okay, now you guys know what this is about. Let's get the microscopes out. Let's run it. So we could use lab time or field time much more than me having to use it doing this kind. If they do it at home, right?
yeah.
You're getting in the direction of the flipped classroom, basically. And that, I think, where it's at ultimately is, as Mel said, it's a changing role that you wind up in, being the facilitator of information and helping them to interpret. And it addresses a lot of inequities in the classroom too, if you think
Yeah.
in terms of diversity, in terms of limited English proficiency, or any number of other things
Yeah.
that really you have the ability to have them access this stuff 24/7. So if they need to access it more than the one time that you lecture on it,
Right.
you're in really good shape.
And you can, spend the classroom time just doing discussion or questions that you have, and, really delve into it. So, and it makes me do the kinds of things that I like doing better as an instructor, which is hands-on stuff and interactive and discussion and exploration, instead of just being the person that, let me deliver this information to you. And then to tell cool stories, like I showed them these parasites. I said, I had this infection once when I was in Peru, and they can't get that in the textbook.
Please tell us more.
Let's hope they actually don't literally get it in the classroom. 'Cause
Parasitic infection. It would be,